Hello, and welcome to a new episode. I am Brian, the Unskilled Commander, and this is Deck Break It Down. Wiki. Today's episode features my Slivers deck with a Sliver Hive Lord. 5 colors, one of each one. It's a 5/5. Sliver creatures you control have indestructible. Slivers is a really fun deck to play because it just is super simple, and it's all just about the slivers. If you're not familiar, slivers, the concept behind them is that they are a hive mind and that anything that one of them learns, they all learn. Meaning, anytime you play a sliver, whatever effect is on the sliver, it most likely says that it gives that effect to every other sliver. One of the things to keep in mind when you're building one of the decks like this is that there are older slivers, the original batch, that said all slivers, meaning any sliver on the battlefield, including your opponents, would get the same buff. The next batch of slivers, the more closer to current times batch, they say your slivers. So whenever I was picking the creatures, I tried to minimize the ones that said all slivers and just focus on the ones that said my slivers, unless the all sliver ones was just too powerful and too good to not have in the deck. So let's go ahead and break down each of the components and see what we've got. Starting out with, we've got our artifacts. Because this is a 5-color deck, the artifacts are pretty much, there are 12 of them, and they are all just about mana ramp in some form. We've got your standards of Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Bonder's Ornament. Letter of Acceptance, it taps for 1 of any color, but also you can sacrifice it after pay 2 mana to draw a card, so that's a nice little bit of card draw in a pinch. Commander Sphere, same thing, it taps for 1 of any color, and you can sacrifice it, draw a card. Seer's Lantern can let you scry, which might help if you get screwed over at some point. I've got all the crystals in here, which I love the crystals, but they're not the best, I guess. I like them, but they're 3 drops that can tap for 1 of each of these 3 colors, and you can cycle them if you don't need mana at the time, discard them and draw a card, which is nice. But a lot of people don't like anything that isn't the 0-drop freaking $100 artifacts, and it's like, well, guess what? Don't have that money, so I like these. And of course, Chromatic Lanterns that try and help mana fix the actual lands when they come in. Oh, and like Thran Dynamo that I did not pick up. Next, we have our instants. There's not too many of these. We've got, your staples. Path to Exile, Swords to Plowshares, because we have white. Fracture, which is nice because it's artifact, enchantment, or planeswalker, so that's a good. And Crow's and Grip, because you do want to spread the wealth a little bit. Semester's End. This is an answering effect that it bounces your creatures, essentially. You exile any number of them, they come back, and they come back with a 1/1 counter on them. So it's a slightly more expensive, but kind of balanced Teferi's Protection, sort of. Only it's just till the end of the turn. So the next opponent could still attack you as well, or blow up the board as well. It's not as good, obviously, as Teferi's Protection, but I think it's a relatively close second. If you're not familiar with it, look into it. It's good for white decks, right? Yeah, it's a 3-drop, 4-drop, 1 white, and 3 others. But yeah, I could probably try and get some more answers in here. I probably should have at least 1 board wipe, which I don't believe I do. Especially because, well, I do. Let's just check that out because I'm pretty sure it's in the sorceries. Skipping over enchantments because we actually don't have any enchantments in this deck. But sorceries, we've got Hive Stirrings, which makes a couple, slivers. We've got a lot of mana ramp. And then we've got your, austere command to destroy all artifacts, enchantments, creatures above, and you can choose 2. So that's a nice way if someone's got an artifact deck to wipe it out and buy you some time. Vindicate, destroy cover permanent, rampant growth, victimize, which is like sacrifice a creature and then go get 2 creatures out of your graveyard to the battlefield. So if you get your best slivers blown up, you sacrifice a weaker sliver, go get them back up. Ponder, Cultivate, of course. Merciless Eviction is the other big board wipe I have in here. And then Approach of the Second Sun. It's kind of the secondary fun, silly win con. I know a lot of people don't like it. I don't understand why it gets the hate. I mean, it costs 7 to play. And then if this spell was cast from your hand and you've cast another spell named Approach of the Second Sun, this game, you win the game. Otherwise, you put Approach of the Second Sun into its owner's library, 7th from the top, and you gain 7 life. I mean, it's not like, 7th from the top is some super easy thing to get to. I guess people, competitive EDH it is, because with, everyone has magic card draw that they can draw cards constantly. I know some of my friends, it seems like they're drawing like 3-4 cards every single turn. But, you have to wait another 7 turns before you can get it on most decks. So it's not that big a deal. And all you got to do is, there's plenty of cards that make opponents like shuffle decks and whatever. So I don't think it needs the hate. Like I said, it costs 7 to play, and then you have to do it twice anyway. I would love to put something like that in my Landfall deck that I just reviewed the episode prior, because Landfall is my absolute best card draw deck, but, white doesn't fit into blue-green, so unfortunately, and I just thought it would be a fun little side win con for this deck. Our lands, we've got 35 of them. I might, maybe I should think about getting, an extra bumping up to 37. What number of lands do you like to run in your deck? I've tried to recently up all of my decks to 36, and it has actually kind of helped a little bit. I used to be running more like 33, 34, and always had to shuffle 1,000 times to get an opening hand that had 3 lands in it and whatever. Upping it to 36 has helped quite a bit in a lot of the decks. And this isn't fully optimized, obviously. I mean, as much as I like the bounce lands, they're slow and they don't help that much in a fast game, which a lot of times you got to worry about with Commander. So I should take these out and put more of those, like the pain lands in or whatever. But again, a lot of those lands are just expensive. Even at $10 a pop, I've got so many decks, I can't put them in all of them. That's still like a couple $100 just to buy like one of the, one card, 6, 7 times or 10 times or whatever for, all the decks that have the right colors, So that is something that I would like to focus on perhaps next year, 2023, is slowly upgrading the mana base on all of my decks and see if that kind of ups their game just enough, slightly, instead of worrying about like trying to get Cyclonic Rift for every blue deck and, Teferi's Protection for every white deck. Maybe just focus on the lands, which are still stupid expensive, as I just said. But, it might, I don't know, I think it can really give a deck an edge if you're getting a multicolored deck anyways, specifically. If you're able to play that mana and tap it immediately instead of having it come in tapped. I understand that, so we'll see. Then we come to the final piece, the creatures, which are, all slivers. I don't think I have anything in here that's not a sliver, obviously. The best slivers are the ones that are going to give you haste or flying or a buff of some kind to damage. So we've got Cloud Shredder is a great one because it's flying and haste. Megantic Sliver is pretty expensive for just a 3/3 buff, and it's only a 3/3 itself. But then again, it buffs itself. So 6 mana for a 6/6, and then you're giving all the other creatures +3/+3. So that's not bad. Sliver Legion with this really awesome extra life art from the Secret Lair. All slivers get +1/+1 for each other sliver on the battlefield. And note that says all slivers, not yours. So if you happen to have an opponent that's also playing slivers, it will buff theirs and yours will get buffed off of the other slivers. So that could backfire, it could be a help, whatever. Gem Hide, so you're tapping, every sliver taps for mana, which is great. Venom Sliver, they all have Death Touch. Double Strike is, of course, a really big one for Bone Scythe. Gale Rider gives them all flying. And then, once again, we've got more haste. Life Link, and this is a fun one because Essence Sliver, because it's old text, so it says whenever a sliver deals damage, its controller gains that much life. And then if I have a sliver, I believe I do, where it says it gives them lifelink, if both of them on their field, they do count as 2 separate things because lifelink is not the same as this. Unless it's been errated, and I don't know, but I'm pretty sure a few years ago, when I've had friends discussing slivers and explaining things, the old text, that's why things get errated and changed in terms of what they mean, because you can then end up double stacking the life link and gaining even more life. So I'll have to look in to see if that actually got fixed or not. Because like Poisonous is sort of like Infect. Got First Strike, +2/+0, add 1 mana of any color. So you see, again, a lot of the slivers do the same things, which is good because if you get a board wipe or if one of them blows up, you need that, suddenly, okay, here's another one that gives them all, haste. Here's another one that gives them all flying. This is a great one. Slivers can't be blocked except by slivers. Now we've got all my slivers as being, unblockable. And then it just keeps going with either buffs or sometimes like, weird little buffs where it's like, oh, like Thorncaster is a great example. Whenever this creature attacks, it deals 1 damage to target creature or player. So you get 3-4 slivers on the field, you tap them all to attack, you're dealing 4 damage to something first. Or you can do 1 damage to 4 things, whatever, and then they do combat damage. So it's a really fun deck to do like that, because once it gets going, it stacks up upon itself really nicely. Something you'll notice as I have to work on, unfortunately, this doesn't have any real card draw, which I'm going to have to really retool it, and I don't know what to get rid of, because there's probably like 3 or 4, I don't know, 2 or 3 maybe, 2 or 3 slivers that I don't really care too much about that I can get rid of. Like, one of them gives them something called Dredge, which lets them play out of the graveyard, and it's like, yeah, that's good, but, maybe I should take out 2 or 3 of those, and then, see if I can get rid of maybe an artifact or something to get like at least 3-4 really good card draw spells in. Because, as I said, while yes, my commander does make them indestructible, depending on when that gets out, or if someone, easily plays, Path to Exile, exiles my commander, and then drops a board wipe, the deck kind of dies, because there's no way to quickly fill your hand with cards and play them again. You're just kind of out of luck. If you can't get the slivers out relatively quickly and start swinging in somehow, they're not gonna, it's hard for them to come back. So that is a lesson I've learned, and I need to work on fixing that. But that is something for the future, because, as we've said, every deck upgrade costs money. And some, and if I'm making new decks for the channel, I don't have the money to go back and fix all the old ones. So you just kind of got to let it ride, and just enjoy them the way they are, and see, if you're always losing, maybe change your play group a little bit, not to say that, like, you shouldn't change too, but, like, maybe the power level of the people you're playing with is just too high. Trying a new store, or trying different times at the store, or whatever, or ask around, and maybe find a group that's a little more casual, and then, oh, look, cool, your deck suddenly is, a little more on par. But what do you think? Do you like slivers? You think they're kind of cheap because they just affect each other? And would you target the sliver player first? I know a lot of people do, and I kind of get it. I can't completely fault them. But, it's like 5-color slivers, as I've said, with no card draw. This isn't some crazy, turn 4 win thing. It's like it takes a long time for the slivers to get going. Some of them are expensive, as you've seen, or they cost, a wonky color group that if you don't get the right mana, you can't even play the cards in your hand. So I don't see it as the biggest threat until you get going, until it gets to like mid-game. Then you've got some potential. But regardless, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. I hope you check out some of my other videos. Please hit the subscribe button if you wouldn't mind. I could really appreciate it. I would really appreciate it, and I can use this subscribers. And maybe drop a like or 2 or something. I hope you come back, and I will see you next time.